here's your host of Living the Country Life, Betsy Free.
You can create an abundance of color and texture to your landscape with bulbs. The trick is knowing when to plant them. Today we're going to talk about bulbs. We have Doug Jimerson, garden editor at Better Homes and Gardens. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now we're in your garden, and we have a few bulbs here. What kind of bulbs are these?
Well, here we have two examples of summer bulbs. This is a dahlia and a canna.
All right.
And it's late in the season, and these are just finishing up.
But they don't carry over in the winter in northern climates?
Summer bulbs do not. You must dig these and store them in the basement for
And when do I do that?
After frost blackens the foliage just slightly. It sends the plant kind of in a remission. You dig them up, trim off the tops, hose off the bulbs, and then you store them in a cool place, usually in newspaper or sawdust or something for the winter.
Okay. And then the next spring you bring them out and plant them again?
Yes.
What kind of bulbs do you plant in the fall?
Fall planted bloom in the spring, and you're talking tulips, alliums, daffodils, crocus, and grape hyacinths.
All right.
And so once these bulbs come out, they go in. And with careful planting, you can have color from bulbs from March until November. It's just the spring flowerings go from March to June, and then from June to November is the summer flowerings.
Well, let's take a look at some of the bulbs. What do we have here?
These are all spring flowering bulbs. These are two different types of narcissus, or daffodils.
All right.
Large flowering, smaller flowering. We have several different tulips in here, some grape hyacinths, and these are the alliums, the big giant onion plants with the big blue heads on them, purple heads on them.
What do you look for when you buy bulbs?
You always want to look for a bulb that's firm and heavy and large. The larger the bulb, the larger the flower.
Oh.
So sometimes if you see bargain bulbs, they're very small. You really can't expect much for them.
Okay.
But the worst thing to do with a bulb is if it's got mold on it or if it's mushy, don't buy it. It's not going to do anything at all.
All right. Where are these bulbs grown?
Most of them are grown in Holland, some in Washington State, but I'd say 90% of our bulbs in this country come from Holland.
All right. Any tricks to planting them?
Not if you know how to dig a hole. I can show you right now.
Oh, yeah. Let's go take a look. Do you have to prepare the soil at all?
It helps to prepare the soil before you plant any bulb. And here I use this little hoe already, a little bit, to get started. Just pulling some of the weeds out of this bed, move them around, get them out of the way, and loosen the soil a bit.
All right. And what do you use to dig the hole?
Well, there's two ways to really plant bulbs. A good trowel is useful if you want to plant individual bulbs around other plants.
Okay.
To tuck them in various places. But I prefer to plant bulbs in much bigger clumps for bigger impact.
How many bulbs would you put in a clump?
Oh, minimum 12.
Okay.
12 to 15.
All
But you can just dig one large hole with a spade and put them in, and you're ready to go.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. The key in your garden bed for bulbs of either summer or spring bloomers is good drainage. If you've got clay soil that holds water, your bulbs probably won't thrive because they rot.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have a sunny spot, all bulbs need full sun pretty much, 6 to 8 hours a day, and well-drained soil. If you've got heavy soil, you can add peat moss or sand to help the drainage.
All right, so we're going to start with tulips.
It's a tulip.
And there's a right side up.
Right side up, and look for the little basal plate. Again, it doesn't matter if they'll flip if you put them in upside down on their own, but I like to do things that they're all right to begin with. You want to space them about 2 to 3 inches apart. And you can see already how when these bloom, this whole spot's going to meet color versus scattered all over the place.
Do you add any fertilizer to them?
Bulbs really don't need fertilizer when you first put them in because they're holding all the energy they need for next spring. Once they're up and blooming in the spring, then you want to give them something to eat when they're already up to help support the next year. But this year, it's literally ready to go. There's a flower in there just ready to burst into bloom come spring.
All right, so you got your tulips in.
Now, if you want, you can leave it like this.
Okay.
Or then you can bring some more soil in with your trowel. Make a little shallower hole. Fix the edges here. Get that out of there. Then you can put some smaller bulbs on top, so you have sort of an interplanted bouquet, if you will. You can layer them up. Oops.
Do they come up at different times?
Well, your hope is, what you want to do is plan so that what you're planting is coming up at the same time. These are muscari. They generally bloom in May. The tulip we put in there is a May blooming tulip. You just want to look at when you buy your bulbs, look at the plant tag when the bloom time is.
Do you have any trouble with, pests getting in, rodents?
Well, squirrels and chipmunks love bulbs, particularly tulips. And one of the ways to foil that is to, once you're done with your bed planting, cover this with a thin layer of chicken wire.
Oh.
Weight it down with some bricks. Cover it with your leaf mulch from when you rake your leaves in the fall. And that should help protect them till spring.
And what about deer?
If deer are a problem, you might want to switch from tulips. Daffodils are a better choice. Daffodils are poisonous. They won't get eaten by the deer or rabbits. Tulips are unfortunately very flavorful and tempting to rabbits and deer.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of those critters, you might want to just opt out and do daffodils.
All right.
So here we are. This is a double planting. Then all you have to do is cover this over and you're done. Oh, one more thing before I forget it. You want to mark this, because if you come back at the plant bulbs later, you might forget where these are at and dig them up. I've done that many times myself.
And you mark what you've planted.
Mark what you planted, and then you're done till spring.
Gosh, that sounds great.
It's pretty easy, really.
Thanks for sharing that,
Sure.
Doug. With a little work in the summer and fall, you can have an explosion of color all season long.